My mother didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just stood there and said, "Pack a bag." I was 17. I hadn't even started college yet. My acceptance letter was still taped to my bedroom wall. I had just told them I was pregnant. My father didn't look at me. He stared at the floor and said, "This will ruin us. Not you, us." My mother's voice stayed calm. Too calm. "You're a disgrace," she said. "Why can't you be like your sister?" I remember holding my phone in one hand, the pregnancy test in the other. I wasn't thinking about being a mother. I was thinking about where I was going to sleep. They took my house key. My clothes went into a trash bag. By midnight, I was standing on the sidewalk. It was cold. I still had homework in my backpack. I didn't know who to call. I didn't know who I was anymore. I was still a kid. But suddenly I had to protect one. Now let me take you back to the beginning. Senior year was supposed to be simple. Not easy. Just predictable. I lived in a modest split level in a quiet suburb outside Columbus. My dad worked in insurance. My mom ran the household like a small business. Laundry on Tuesdays, church on Sundays, dinner at 6. My older sister Rachel had left for college the year before. She called home often. My parents talked about her like she was a trophy. Rachel's doing so well. Rachel's so focused. Rachel wasn't mean. She was just far away. And in my house, distance becomes a story. When she was gone, I became the comparison. I was the one who still needed direction. I had a part-time job after school at a frozen yogurt place. I was saving for textbooks and gas. I kept my head down. I didn't party much. That's what makes this next part hard to explain. Because it wasn't a pattern. It was one night. A friend's older cousin threw a graduation party early. It was loud, crowded, and full of kids trying to act older than we were. I told my mom I was sleeping at my friend Jenna's. That was true. I just didn't tell her where we went first. There was alcohol. Not a lot at first. Then more. Someone handed me a cup. I didn't ask what was in it. That sounds reckless. It was. But I was 17 and tired of being the sensible one. I remember music shaking the walls, someone's dog barking, a string of backyard lights swinging in the wind. I remember laughing too hard at something that wasn't funny. I remember feeling unsteady. Then it gets blurry, not in a dramatic way, in a frightening way, like missing frames in a movie. I woke up the next morning on a couch in a basement I didn't recognize. My mouth tasted like pennies. My head felt thick. My jeans were on the floor. I sat up fast and felt my stomach drop. There was a boy I didn't know asleep in a recliner. He looked about my age, maybe older. His shoes were still on. I stared at him until he woke. He blinked at me like he was also trying to find his memory. "Are you okay?" he asked. His voice sounded normal, not threatening, just confused. I didn't answer. I grabbed my phone from the coffee table and checked it. 2% battery, no new messages, no number saved, no name. I pulled my jeans on with shaking hands. "Hey," he said softly. I have to go," I said. I didn't let him finish. I went upstairs. The house was too bright, too quiet. Someone's mom was washing dishes in the kitchen like it was any Saturday morning. I walked out the front door without saying a word. I got to Jenna's house and went straight to her bathroom. I stared at myself in the mirror. Mascara smudged, hair tangled, eyes wide like I'd seen something I couldn't name. Jenna knocked once. "You okay?" she asked. I lied. "Yeah, just tired." For weeks after that, I tried to bury it. I told myself it was a mistake, a stupid night, nothing more. I finished finals, went to graduation practice, smiled in photos. My parents talked about my college plans like they were already fixed. I tried to act normal, but normal didn't fit right anymore. Then my period didn't come. At first, I blamed stress. Graduation, college, my body being unpredictable. Then a second week passed. Then a third. I went to the drugstore after my shift. Bought a test with the money I'd been saving for my dorm supplies. I did it in the bathroom at the yogurt shop because I couldn't wait. The line appeared fast. Too fast. Like it had been waiting. My hands went cold. I sat on the closed toilet lid and stared at it until my eyes burned. I drove home with the test in my purse like it was something radioactive. All night I listened to my parents watching TV downstairs. Laughter from a sitcom. The clink of ice in a glass. Normal life. I held my breath in my room. The acceptance letter on the wall looked like a joke. The next morning I told them. I thought my mother would cry. I thought my father would shout. I thought there would be chaos. Instead, there was silence. My dad's face changed first. Not anger, fear. Then my mother's lips pressed into a thin line. She didn't ask if I was okay. She asked, "Who is it I don't know?" I whispered. My father's chair scraped back. He stood up too quickly. "This is unbelievable." My mother didn't move. She looked at me like I was a stain that wouldn't come out. Rachel's name came out of her mouth like an accusation. "Your sister would never." My father's voice went low. "Do you know what people will say?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. My mother finally spoke the sentence that ended my childhood. "Pack a bag." I said, "Mom." She cut me off. "You made an adult choice. You can handle adult consequences." My father walked past me without looking at my face. He opened the front door. Cold air spilled in. It felt like a warning. I went upstairs in a daze. Pulled clothes off hangers. Stuffed them into a black trash bag because that's what was in the closet. My hands moved without my permission. I heard my mother downstairs on the phone, not crying, whispering. "He got her pregnant." A pause. "Yes, we're handling it." She didn't say my name. That hurt more than the yelling would have. When I came back down, my house key was in my father's palm. He held it out. I stared at it. He didn't speak. I placed it there like I was returning property. My mother stood by the door. She didn't hug me. She didn't touch my hair. She didn't ask where I'd go. She just said, "Don't come back." I stepped onto the porch with my trash bag and my backpack. Homework, a notebook, a calculator, evidence that I was still a student, still a child. My father closed the door. The lock clicked. That sound stayed with me for years. I stood on the sidewalk and realized I had nowhere to put my body. No plan, no money that could fix this. Only a phone at 9% battery, and a future that suddenly belonged to nobody. Across town, my sister was probably studying for a midterm. She didn't know my life had just been erased. And my parents were already rewriting the story. They would say I moved away. They would say I was troubled. They would say they only had one daughter. The good one. I tightened my grip on the trash bag. Then I started walking. Not toward anything. Just away. I walked for 20 minutes before I stopped pretending I had a plan. The trash bag cut into my fingers. My backpack felt heavier than it should have. I sat down at a bus stop 3 streets over from my house. A place I had passed 100 times and never noticed. Now it felt like a border. Cars moved past me without slowing. No one knew I had just been erased. I checked my phone. 8%. I opened my contacts, scrolled, stopped at Jenna. Then hesitated. She had parents who asked questions. Parents who cared about rules. I stared at her name for a full 10 seconds. Then I pressed call. She answered on the 3rd ring. "Hey!" My voice cracked before I could stop it. "Can I come over?" She didn't ask why. She just said, "Yeah." Her dad picked me up because I didn't trust my car to make it across town. He didn't comment on the trash bag. He just put it in the trunk. In the car, he glanced at me once. "You okay?" he asked. I nodded. It was easier than explaining. Jenna's house smelled like laundry detergent and coffee. Her mom hugged me when I walked in. Not tight, not dramatic, just enough to feel human. "You can stay in the guest room," she said. For now. For now. Those words held more mercy than anything my own parents had said. That first night I lay in a twin bed with unfamiliar sheets and stared at the ceiling. I tried to imagine how this could still become a normal story. Maybe my parents would cool down. Maybe they would call tomorrow. Maybe this was temporary. My phone buzzed once. My heart jumped. It wasn't them. It was a number I didn't recognize. I almost ignored it. Then I answered. Hello, a pause. Is this Emily? The voice was male, careful. Yes, it's Mark. Silence. It took a second for the name to attach to a face. The boy in the basement. Oh. I've been trying to find you, he said quickly. I left my number on the coffee table that morning. I remembered the phone at 2% battery. The rush. The exit. I didn't see it, I said. I figured, he replied. His voice wasn't defensive. It was nervous. I heard from someone at school that you weren't around. I'm around, I said. Just not at home. I wanted to make sure you were okay. That word again. Okay? I'm not, I said quietly. He exhaled. Can we meet? I hesitated. I didn't know this boy. I didn't know what he wanted. But I knew I was carrying something that belonged to both of us. We met at a diner near the highway. Bright lights, sticky menus, the kind of place that stays open too late. He was already in a booth when I walked in. He stood up when he saw me. That small gesture surprised me. He looked normal. Clean sweatshirt, nervous hands. I'm sorry, he said immediately. For that night. I studied his face. You were drunk too, he added. I know. There was no accusation in my voice, just fact. He swallowed. I didn't disappear, he said. My uncle had a heart attack that weekend. I left early. He paused. I didn't know how to find you. I didn't know how to find you either. We sat down. Neither of us touched the menus. I'm pregnant, I said. I watched the information land. His jaw tightened slightly. Not with anger, with calculation. How far, he asked. About 6 weeks. He nodded slowly. I'm not going to pretend we were in love, he said. I'm not going to propose because it sounds noble. I appreciated that more than I expected. But I'm not disappearing, he continued. I won't leave you to deal with this alone. I didn't realize how much I needed to hear that until my shoulders dropped. My parents kicked me out, I said. He blinked. Already? Yes. He looked down at his hands. My parents are going to be upset, he said. But they're not like that. I didn't know what that meant yet. I would. Over the next week, I stayed at Jenna's house. Her parents let me eat at their table. They didn't ask invasive questions. They did ask if I had a doctor. They helped me look up clinics. My guidance counselor arranged a meeting at school. We talked about deferring college, about paperwork, about options. I listened. Numb. One afternoon, Mark picked me up for an appointment. He drove an old pickup that rattled when it idled. He didn't talk much. He just showed up. After the ultrasound, when we saw the flicker on the screen, he went quiet. Not emotional, just still. That's real, he said under his breath. Yes, he nodded. Okay, he said finally. Then we figure it out. A few days later, he asked if I would meet his parents. I expected what I knew. Judgment, coldness, distance. Instead, his mother opened the door and looked at me like I was someone's daughter. Which I was. Just not anymore. She didn't hug me right away. She invited me in. His father shook my hand. Firm, not hostile. Mark explained the situation in blunt terms. There was no romance in his voice, just responsibility. His mother listened. Then she looked at me. Are you safe? She asked. The question hit harder than I expected. Yes, I said. Are you staying somewhere stable for now? She nodded. We don't abandon our own, she said quietly. I felt something crack inside me, not loud, just enough to let air in. That night back in Jenna's guest room, I realized something had shifted. I was still scared. Still 17, still not in college, still pregnant, but I was no longer alone in the room. And that changed the shape of everything. Mark's parents didn't rush anything. They didn't say, "Move in tomorrow." They didn't try to turn it into a fairy tale. They asked practical questions: doctor appointments, insurance, school. His father sat at the kitchen table with a yellow legal pad and wrote things down. His mother made tea, not because it fixed anything, because it steadied the room. A week later, Mark drove me to their house with my trash bag and backpack. It felt strange carrying my life in something meant for garbage. His mother noticed. She took the bag gently from my hands. "We'll find you something better than that," she said. That sentence alone felt like dignity. I moved into the spare bedroom at the end of the hall. Small window, quilted bedspread, a bookshelf with old paperbacks. It wasn't glamorous. It was safe. Mark kept sleeping in his own room. That mattered. His parents were clear. "You both made a mistake," his father said. "That doesn't mean we create another one." There was structure in that house, boundaries, accountability, but no exile. I called my school counselor from their kitchen one afternoon. She helped me file paperwork to defer my college enrollment. Not cancel. Defer. That word kept hope alive. I kept my part-time job at the yogurt shop until my uniform stopped fitting. Customers looked at my stomach. Some smiled, some judged. I learned quickly which looks to ignore. Mark picked up extra shifts at a hardware store. He didn't complain, he just adjusted. One night, a few months into the pregnancy, I asked him something that had been sitting between us. "Do you regret it?" I said. He knew what I meant. He leaned back in the driver's seat after dropping me home from an appointment. "I regret being careless," he said. "I don't regret stepping up." I nodded. That was enough. We weren't in love, not yet. We were two teenagers learning responsibility in real time. His parents treated me like a person who had made a mistake. Not like a mistake. There's a difference. My son was born on a cold February morning. Long labor. Bright hospital lights. The kind of exhaustion that strips everything unnecessary away. Mark stood next to me the whole time. Not dramatic, not heroic, just present. When the nurse placed my baby on my chest, I didn't feel redemption. I felt gravity. A weight that reorganized my priorities instantly. Mark's mother cried quietly in the corner. His father cleared his throat and looked at the floor. No one mentioned shame. No one mentioned reputation. We brought him home 2 days later. A car seat too large for his tiny body. A diaper bag packed 3 times over. The spare bedroom became a nursery. Mark painted one wall a soft gray. I finished high school from home. Online assignments. Late-night study sessions while the baby slept in a bassinet beside me. Sometimes I would look at him and feel overwhelmed. Not regret, responsibility. When college resumed the following fall, I took 2 classes at the community college nearby. Not the university on my acceptance letter. But a step. Mark worked full-time by then. He enrolled in night classes the year after. We built our days around schedules and feedings, around exhaustion and small victories. Sometimes we argued about money, about who was more tired, about whose turn it was to get up at 3 in the morning. But even in those arguments, there was something solid. We were on the same side. A year later, something changed quietly. It wasn't a dramatic confession. It wasn't fireworks. It was a Tuesday night in the kitchen. The baby was asleep. We were folding laundry. He handed me one of my sweaters and didn't let go right away. "I didn't expect this," he said. "Me neither," I replied. "I'm glad it's you," he added. That was the beginning. Love built out of proximity and shared weight. Not fantasy, not pressure, choice. We got married at the courthouse when our son was 2. Small ceremony, his parents, a few friends, no grand announcements, no white dress, just signatures and steady hands. I finished my degree 3 years later, business administration, not glamorous, practical. I got a job at a regional logistics company, started entry level, moved up slowly. Mark completed his certification in electrical work. We bought a modest house in a middle-class suburb, 2 bedrooms, a fenced yard, a maple tree in the front. Life wasn't flashy, it was stable. I learned to manage budgets, retirement accounts, health insurance forms, the things my parents once handled without teaching me. We built quietly, intentionally. Sometimes late at night I would think about my old house, about the locked door, about my sister. I hadn't heard from her, not once. I assumed my parents had told a version of the story that didn't include me. In our new neighborhood, people asked about my family. I said they live out of state. It was easier. Years passed. My son started kindergarten, then middle school. He had Mark's calm and my stubborn focus. He played soccer, he liked math. He called Mark's parents Grandma and Grandpa. That part used to sting. Then it stopped, because those names were earned. When my son turned 14, I was 32. We had paid off most of our mortgage. We had college savings started. We had routines. Dinner at 6, church on Sundays. Sound familiar? But this time, the rules were different. One afternoon, my phone rang with a number I hadn't seen in 15 years. Area code from my hometown. I stared at it. Let it ring once, twice. Then I answered. Hello, silence on the other end. Then my mother's voice. Soft. Careful. Emily, I didn't speak. We need to talk, she said. And just like that, the past walked back into my kitchen. Not with apology, with need. We need to talk. My mother's voice sounded smaller than I remembered. Not fragile, just measured. I leaned against the kitchen counter. My son was upstairs doing homework. Mark was still at work. What about? I asked. A pause. It's your sister. The word caught in my throat. Rachel. I hadn't heard her name spoken to me in years. She's sick, my mother said. How sick? Another pause. Very. The air in my kitchen shifted, not because I suddenly felt close to them, because illness rearranges the room. What happened? I asked. Leukemia, she said quietly. The word landed heavy. I closed my eyes. When I asked, a few months ago, a few months. And you're calling now? Yes. There was something else in her voice. Hesitation, calculation. We're testing family members, she continued. For compatibility. My grip tightened on the phone. For what? For a transplant. Silence. Then the next sentence. We'd like to test you. I didn't answer. And your son, she added quickly. The words moved through me slowly. My son. Why him? I asked. He's family. The simplicity of that answer stunned me. Family. I swallowed. You told people you only had one daughter, I said evenly. That was a long time ago, and now we need help. There it was. Not reconciliation, not remorse, need. I'm not putting my son through testing, I said. Her breath caught. You don't even know if he's a match. That's not the point. It could save her life. And where were you when mine was falling apart? Silence. Longer this time. That was different, she said. How you made choices. So did you. I didn't say it out loud. You were 17, she added quickly, as if that made it smaller. Yes, I said calmly, I was. There was movement on the other end. I imagined her sitting at the same kitchen table where she once told me to pack a bag. We're not asking you to forgive us, she said. We're asking you to help your sister. My chest felt tight, not with anger, with memory. Rachel studying for exams. Rachel calling home from college. Rachel unaware. Does she know you called? I asked. Yes. What does she think she wants to talk to you? Of course she does. Is she asking for my son? She wants a chance to live. The phrasing was deliberate. My son's laughter floated down the stairs. A normal sound. A living sound. Listen to me, I said quietly. I will get tested. Relief exhaled through the line. But my son is not part of this. Emily, no. The firmness surprised even me. He's 14. He has no part in the consequences of what you did. It's not about us. It always is. She went quiet. I'll talk to Rachel, I added. And I'll talk to my husband. Another pause. Thank you, she said finally. I didn't respond. I ended the call. When Mark came home, I was sitting at the kitchen table with my hands folded. He knew something was wrong immediately. What happened? He asked. My sister has leukemia. He sat down across from me. And they want testing. For you and our son. His jaw tightened. That's not happening. I told them that. He nodded once. Firm. They don't get access to him, he said quietly. Access. That word echoed. They think this erases everything I said. They think biology resets history. He reached across the table and took my hand. You don't owe anyone your child, he said. I looked at him. 15 years ago, he had said he wouldn't disappear. He hadn't. Now he wasn't flinching either. I'll get tested, I said, because I can decide that. And if you're a match, he asked. I didn't answer immediately. That was the real question. Not anger, not revenge, sacrifice. I thought about being 17, about the sidewalk, about the locked door. I thought about Rachel not knowing, about her maybe believing the version she'd been told. I don't know yet, I said honestly. He nodded. That's okay. Later that night, I told my son a partial truth. Aunt Rachel is sick, I said. He frowned. The one I've never met. Yes. He sat with that. Is she going to die? He asked. I don't know. He looked at me carefully. They're not going to ask me for anything, right? I met his eyes. No. The certainty in my voice steadied him. He nodded once and went back to his homework. Upstairs, the house felt solid, safe, built intentionally, not fragile. The next morning, I scheduled testing at a hospital near my office. I didn't tell my parents the appointment time. I didn't offer updates. They called twice that week. I didn't answer. I would handle this on my terms, not theirs. 3 days later, I got a message from a number I didn't recognize. Emily, it's Rachel. Can we talk? I stared at the text for a long time. For years, she had been the golden child, the comparison, the standard. Now she was reaching out. Not as an example. As a patient, I typed back, yes. And suddenly the past had a face again. Rachel chose a coffee shop halfway between our towns. Neutral ground, public, safe. I arrived early, habit. I always prepare before walking into tension. When she walked in, I almost didn't recognize her. Thinner, paler, but still Rachel, still composed. She spotted me and stopped for a second, like she was measuring the distance between who we were and who we had become. Hi, she said. Hi. We didn't hug. We sat down. She wrapped both hands around her coffee cup but didn't drink it. I didn't know she said immediately. There was no small talk. No one told me they kicked you out until months later. I studied her face. I was at school, she continued. They told me you moved out, that you wanted space. I didn't answer. When I came home for Thanksgiving, you were gone, she said, and they said you'd chosen to cut contact. The words settled heavily between us. I tried to find you, she added. They wouldn't give me your number. My memory flickered. All those years assuming she didn't care. You didn't call Jenna, I said quietly. I didn't know where you were staying. Her hands tightened around the cup. I was 20, she said. I believed them. There was shame in her voice. Not defensive, not rehearsed, just tired. I'm not here to pressure you, she said carefully. I told Mom and Dad I don't want your son tested. That caught me off guard. You did, yes. She swallowed. I don't want that weight on him. Silence. They think this is about family duty, she continued. I don't. I let out a slow breath. What do you think it is? I asked. She looked at me steadily. I think they're scared. That was honest. And I think they're used to believing things can be fixed if you just push hard enough. That was also honest. I was a kid too, she said softly. When you left? I nodded. We both were. I'm sorry, she said, for not knowing sooner. I studied her face again. I searched for resentment. I found fatigue, regret. I don't blame you, I said finally. Her shoulders lowered slightly. Relief. Are you getting tested? She asked. Yes. She nodded. If you're not a match, she said that's the end of it. And if I am, she didn't answer right away. I don't want you to do something you'll resent, she said. I don't want to be saved at the cost of your peace. That was different from our parents' tone. That was someone facing mortality without entitlement. I'm not 17 anymore, I said quietly. No, she agreed. You're not. We sat there a while. Two adults with shared history but separate lives. Before leaving, she said something that stayed with me. They never stopped comparing us, she said. I didn't like it. I almost laughed. You benefited from it. Not the way you think, she replied. I believed her. Comparison harms both sides. It just looks different. A week later, the hospital called. I wasn't a match, not even close. The doctor's tone was clinical, kind, decisive. I hung up and sat still for a moment. No sacrifice required, no moral crossroads, just biology. I called Rachel. I'm not a match, I said. She exhaled. I didn't think you would be, she admitted. Why, you and I were never that similar, she said softly. We both smiled at that. After I hung up, my mother called within the hour. How soon can they test your son? She asked immediately. There it was. I felt the temperature in my body drop. I told you no, I said evenly. This is life or death. So was mine. Silence. You're holding on to the past, she said. I'm protecting my child. They're different things. No, I replied calmly. They're connected. She shifted tone. You owe her. I inhaled slowly. Owe her what? A chance. She has one, I said. Other donors, other options. She might not. The guilt lever was being pulled again. I will not risk my son's health, I said. It's a simple test. It's not simple to me. My father's voice came faintly in the background. Put him on. She did. Emily, he said, this isn't about old grievances. It never was, I said. It's about access. He went quiet. You lost access when you locked that door. Silence, not anger, recognition. You're still angry, he said. No, I replied. I'm clear. He didn't argue. For the first time, there was no accusation in his tone. Just fatigue. We're trying to save our daughter, he said, and I'm trying to protect my son. The symmetry hung between us. He ended the call without another word. That night, Mark and I sat on the porch after dinner, the air cool. Our son inside watching television. Are you okay? He asked. Yes. And I was. Not because my sister was sick, not because my parents were desperate, but because I wasn't scrambling for their approval. I wasn't 17 anymore. I had a home, a husband, a child who trusted me, and a boundary that held. The next day, Rachel texted, They're pushing, aren't they? Yes. I'm sorry, you don't have to be. She sent one more message. No matter what happens, thank you for meeting me. I stared at that for a long time. No demand, no guilt, just gratitude. And for the first time in 15 years, I didn't feel like the erased daughter. I felt like the adult in the room. The calls became less frequent after that, not because the situation improved, because the options narrowed. Rachel began treatment that didn't require a direct family match. Aggressive, uncertain, expensive. My parents stopped asking about my son. They stopped mentioning testing. They spoke to me instead in clipped updates. Her counts are low. She's responding some days. She's tired. I listened. I didn't offer more than I could. Mark stayed steady. He never told me what to do. He simply stood beside whatever decision I made. That steadiness mattered more than dramatic speeches ever could. One afternoon, Rachel called from the hospital. Her voice was thinner, but clearer. "They told me today this might take a long time," she said. "I know. I wanted to say something before it gets messy." I waited. "You were never the disgrace," she said. "You were just visible." I closed my eyes. "That house wasn't built for truth," she continued. "It was built for reputation." I remembered the locked door, the way my father had looked past me. "They were scared," she added. "They still are." "That doesn't erase it," I said. "No," she agreed. "It doesn't. There was no attempt to rewrite history, just acknowledgement." "I'm glad you built something better," she said softly. "I had help." "Good," she replied. "Keep it that way." After we hung up, I sat at the kitchen table for a long time, not crying, not angry, just absorbing. My parents didn't come by again. They didn't demand meetings. They didn't send extended family to pressure me. Something in my father's tone during that last call had shifted. Not pride, not forgiveness, resignation. They had pushed as far as they could, and the door had not reopened. Months passed. Rachel's condition stabilized, not cured, but steady enough. My mother called one evening without urgency in her voice. "She's home for now," she said. "That's good. She wants to see you again." "I'll visit," I said. And I did. I went alone. Mark offered to come. I shook my head. "This one's mine," I said. Their house looked smaller than I remembered. The paint faded, the front porch sagging slightly. Time had touched it. My mother opened the door. She looked older, more fragile around the eyes. "Thank you for coming," she said. It was the first thank you I had heard from her in years. Inside, Rachel sat on the couch with a blanket over her legs. She smiled when she saw me, not wide, but real. We talked about ordinary things, work, weather, my son's soccer team. She didn't ask about testing. She didn't mention sacrifice. My father hovered in the kitchen, listening, not interrupting. At one point, my mother brought out photo albums. She hesitated before placing one in front of me. It was an old one, from before. There I was, 16, smiling at something outside the frame. "You never threw them away," I said quietly. She looked down. No. The silence that followed wasn't hostile. It was reflective. "We handled it badly," my father said from the doorway. "That was all. No defense, no explanation, just fact." I nodded. "We were afraid," my mother added. "Of what?" I asked. "People," she said simply. That word explained too much. I didn't forgive them in that moment. Forgiveness isn't a switch. It's a slow erosion. But I saw them clearly. Not as villains, not as monsters, as flawed adults who chose image over protection, and now lived with it. Before I left, my father walked me to the door. "I don't expect anything," he said. "I know. But you should know," he added quietly. "We were wrong to lock it." That was as close to apology as he could get. I didn't hug him, but I didn't pull away either. Back home that night, I stood in my own kitchen, the same steady countertops, the same soft hum of the refrigerator. My son came in and asked if his aunt was okay. "She's fighting," I said. "Good," he replied. Then he went back upstairs. Normal life resumed. Dinner at 6, church on Sundays, homework on the table. Except this time, no one in my house was walking on eggshells. No one was measuring worth against comparison. The past didn't disappear. It integrated. My parents call sometimes now, not often. Short conversations, updates, weather talk. They don't ask for anything. They don't demand access. And that's the difference. They lost the right to assume. They gained the chance to ask. Rachel continues treatment. Some days are better than others. We text occasionally. Not out of obligation. Out of choice. If you're listening to this and you've ever been told you were a disgrace, remember something. Disgrace is often just visibility in a family that values silence. I was 17 when they locked the door. I was 32 when they knocked. They came back because they needed something. They stayed because I chose what to protect. And that choice changed everything. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever rebuilt your life from a sidewalk with a trash bag in your hand, stay with this channel. Share your story. Because survival is quiet, but it is powerful.